Well, obviously, you know, everybody in the room knows that it didn't start the way that we wanted it to the season, obviously. And, you know, I think that the guys made a great effort these last few days to get in here, to make the corrections with the coaches, to figure out, you know, what we need to do moving forward, and then close the chapter on that first game and get ready for Detroit. Because to us, really, it comes down. We know that we've got 15 games, but this is a one-game season for us. It starts with Detroit and having more success than we did last week against Buffalo, and starting to get on track with this season.
Can you talk about Detroit's defense and Ndamukong Suh? He's scary.
They are. They're a big physical defense. You know, they do a great job with those front four of creating pressure on the quarterback. They brought in a few different people from a personnel standpoint this past year, which kind of created a little bit more speed at the linebacker position. And I think just watching them on film, they look like a team that's playing with a tremendous amount of confidence right now. And so, you know, for us, again, it's one of those situations that we need to be ready to go in there and play hard and play a much better ball game in all phases than what we did last week.
Specifically though, Suh, I mean, he's thrown some guys down on the ground. He's been fined 3 times in less than 2 years. I mean, as a quarterback, and when you see him on film, what do you think of him? I mean, he's a bad dude.
Right, you know, Suh's a great player, and his reputation speaks for itself. He gives 110% effort on each and every play, and he creates some mismatch problems if you let him go one-on-one long enough. But at the same time, like any person, he's human, and it's not something that I don't think our guys are going in there and going to be scared and timid to block him. We're going to go out there and do our best and be ready to go.
When you look at the things that you saw from Buffalo and you said guys were correcting, are they things in your mind that are easily correctable, things that you can take care of and kind of get things on the track you want it to be on?
Well, I think everything's correctable, and obviously there's a lot of things that we looked at in multiple phases of the game that we need to get better at. And I think number one overall, we just have to play with great effort for 4 quarters. And not to say that we didn't, but at times I think that for whatever reason it looked like we were lackadaisical, and we can't do that. We have to be a team that goes out there and every play and every time that they turn on the film, they see us just run around the field with our heads cut off.
Matt, as a leader, what are you doing to make sure that guys forget the Buffalo game and that loss doesn't linger?
Well, that's a great point, and I can understand how a lot of people on the outside look at that first game and say, how do you guys not let that impact you moving forward? And as a leader of the team, you have to impress upon those players that, hey, it is only one game. And the fact is, if we go into Detroit this week and we play well and our goal is to get a victory and we get a victory, well then we don't remember that Buffalo game. So our focus needs to be on playing a great Detroit football team right now and getting a win.
But it's really basically since the Tennessee game last year where you've really had a good offensive rhythm and everything. How do you get that back? I mean, the last 2 games of last year didn't go well. The preseason you kind of hardly played, and then it didn't go well last week. That's quite a while between a little confidence boost, isn't it?
Well, you talk about last year. Last year's last year. I mean, we're in a completely different team. And if you want to pick out 2 games from last year, I understand that those were the 2 games last year. But you can also say that there was 10 other games that we played really well. So we can also pull off that, to me. But right now, the last game was last game. We didn't play with great. We didn't play with great execution. I think in all phases we just have to execute better, and it only takes 1 game to get into that rhythm. And I think that that's the goal for this team, is to get into a rhythm and start executing on a higher level, and then hopefully you build off that, and that's when you start to roll.
What builds that fire? You were talking about at times, you know, you wanted to see more. What builds that? Is that just being confident in what you do? Is it just, I mean, because I know everybody cares. So what is it that translates into that fire on the sidelines and fire on the field where you're really, you know, pushing through some trouble spots? What creates that?
I just think that we have to have a sense of urgency. And I'm not trying to give the impression that we didn't have fire and that we weren't ready to play, because I really do think, despite what happened in the game, we felt prepared and we felt like we were ready to play. It just was one of those games that it did not go right for us. And we can point the finger, we can do all these things, but really we just have to play better, with better effort, with better sense of urgency, and execute.
And what seems to be Bill Muir's personality? I mean, Todd seems to be a pretty fiery guy, and you know, wants things to be a certain way. And Bill seems a little more laid back than that. at least from what I've seen. But in your experience, what seems to be Bill's personality? What's it like?
Well, I think Bill's anything but laid back. I mean, he's got a great fire to himself. He really pushes people. He gets after people in the meeting room, and so it might not show up as much, or you might not see it in the public eye as much, but he's got a great fire about himself and a great intensity and a great passion for the game.
What sets him off, I guess, in the meeting room, or what kind of gets him going?
You know, anything can get him going, but because he's the offensive coordinator, I think anytime somebody's not doing the right thing, then he'll get after us pretty good.